oh, you don't need to be upset about that. Or if you're worried, stop worrying. It's like, it doesn't help. It doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't make it any better. So we talked earlier about routines helping our kids' brains and helping them to regulate their emotions. They are absolutely still learning to regulate their emotions, and we as adults whose frontal cortexes are fully formed, we still need someone when we're upset to come alongside and acknowledge how we're feeling and kind of walk us through it. We might still need to take a minute, take deep breaths and things. So think about a little child who doesn't have all that experience and how to regulate themselves. I don't have time to give a whole talk about sensory regulation, but some children get more overwhelmed or overstimulated depending on their environment by loud noises. So if you're at the trampoline park with a million screaming kids and your kid's having a meltdown about their shoe, it might not be about their shoe. And so just as a mom, knowing those things so that you can then plan or change what you do. You can bring earplugs, or you can go on the school day discount when there's not that many kids, or you can just say, you know what, we can't make that birthday party, sorry, because our sanity is more important than that situation. Also, your child might need different things to help them when they're upset. So again, just think about yourself, and sometimes you need to take a bath, or sometimes you need to talk about it or not talk about it. Maybe they need tight hugs, or they need to just jump on the trampoline every day after school because they got to get some of that out from all of the peopliness that they just went through. You know your child, and these are things that over time you'll learn about them. And then as they get older, you can also teach them, how to communicate it, like how are you feeling and different things. But when they're really little, sometimes we don't really know the reason behind some of these meltdowns. Maybe your child gets hangry, because I know I do, and so you got stuck in traffic and they didn't eat any lunch because your snacks got used up yesterday. Whatever, it doesn't mean that their behavior is okay. Like hangry doesn't mean I can hit my sister with a truck, but you'll know, oh, if I give you food by 11 or whatever instead of noon, you're less likely to hit your sister with a truck. Just be aware of those things as you're thinking about disciplining your kids. So there are, though, times when your child will be having had a really good night's sleep and they're perfectly fed and they haven't been overstimulated, and suddenly they're just losing their mind because of the color of their car seat that you've had for a year, or the way their hair feels on their head. I don't know, sometimes it just doesn't make sense. So I'm going to give you an example of a real life tantrum from a few weeks ago, and then I'm going to give you kind of 3 steps that you can remember if your kid's having a tantrum and you've already thought about, okay, are they hungry, all those things. So Thea, I keep using her name today, but she's 6, and some of you have already heard this story because it was a rough day, but she goes to farm school now 3 days a week, and it had just started. I don't know, it might have been even the first week. She'd gone a couple times, and she was happy to leave me. It was fine. And we're getting ready to go out the door. Literally, the door is open. Everyone's putting on their shoes, and we're walking out. Well, she always wears the same rain boots because it's outside, and they run around. There's animals. So her boots are split all the way down the back and all the way across the bottom. They must have been cracked for a couple weeks. I think I kind of knew that, but it wasn't a big deal. Well, now her foot is literally can't stay in the shoe. So my husband told her, you have to wear your tennis shoes to school because her foot couldn't even stay in this shoe. These tennis shoes were pretty. They're purple. They're slip-on. You'd have to tie them. They're kind of new. And you would have thought that he told her to put some piranhas on her feet. She lost her marbles. She was crying. I took her to school. She was crying the whole way. She was crying as I walked her in. She wasn't just sad. She was kicking and and pushing on me. And I'm what is even happening? So I may not have done all these steps right away, but eventually we got to them. Tried talking to her, tried all the things. But this first step, if this is happening to you, is to acknowledge their feelings. And so you can use words like I see or I hear. So just like when we're sad or upset or freaking out about our shoes. I don't know if anyone does that, but we want someone to be like, I know, I hear that you're sad because this happened, right? And I'm sorry. So, I did tell her. She didn't stop crying, so I walked her out and like kind of sat her on the curb. A bunch of other people, like other moms, were like, "Can we like help you? Here's like a kitten, isn't it cute?" I'm like, "No, she's like she's not sad that I'm leaving her here. She's like literally this sad about her shoes." So I said, I see that you're really sad because you can't wear those shoes, and it really stinks that they're ripped, right? The second step is to tell them the boundary. So that day, our boundary was that you have to wear shoes that actually hold your feet to go to school. And so I told her, I know you like those boots better, but these shoes are going to keep you safe. So I need you to wear them today. And then step 3 is to give them either a choice or something to look forward to. And so for this situation, I told her, you need to wear these shoes today because they're going to keep your feet safe. And when you get home from school, we can look together on Amazon and you can pick out some other boots because you do need boots and that will be fine. Give them something like after that situation. It might not be something you can fix, but whatever it may be, something different to kind of distract their brain. I also told her that here's what we're going to do now. You're still upset. I'm sorry, but I'm going to walk you to class. We're going to do our handshake, hug, kiss, I love you, and then I need to walk away because I've already taken her like 12 times and been like, huh, and she's coming back to me. So once she was at least calm enough to talk about it, it's like, here are the steps, and then this is what we're going to do now. She agreed to my terms, and she was still crying when I left her, but her teacher told me that she got out of it really quick, and she had a great day, and it was fine. So I didn't drive home and get her the ripped boots and let her wear them, right? It didn't change my mind. It does take a long time, and it's still really hard. If I just stood there and kept telling her, stop crying, I would have been more frustrated, and she would have been more frustrated. I had to set her down and just stand by her and just kind of wait until she was able to talk to me. Obviously, there's all different tantrums and situations, but if you can kind of acknowledge their feelings, talk about what the boundary is, and kind of distract or give a choice for something, hopefully that will help. So words matter how you instruct your children, and then on your sheet there, they also matter in how you're going to correct your kids. So you can write correct or corrections. You know that saying, I don't know if this makes me old, but sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. That's not true. Words absolutely hurt. And so one way I try to help my kids use their words kindly is asking them questions. So when I hear them saying something mean or rude or whatever it may be, usually to their siblings, I like to say, is that kind? Is it necessary? And is it true? And so if it fits all 3 of those categories, then go ahead and say it. But otherwise, you need to think it over and keep it in your mind. I used to have a sign on the wall with those words on it, and I could point to my kids, some of them can't read, but if they can, does it match up? These are the qualifications of what you're allowed to say to your siblings. Particularly one of my daughters right now is having a hard time with keeping things in her head, so we're working on that you don't have to say everything out loud that comes to your brain, right? And I also like that it's not me just saying, hey, don't say that, although I do also do that. But if I can remember to ask them, then it's allowing them to evaluate their own words instead of just, Mom told me not to say that. They have to think about it. Okay, is it kind? It might be true, but if it's not kind, then it doesn't need to come out, So it gives them a way to evaluate their own speech. And the other way that I correct their words is by giving another chance to do it over. So I'm sure most of you have seen the movie Frozen. I'm just referencing all the kids' movies because that's all I watch. When Kristoff says to the reindeer, I can't understand you when you talk like that. If my child's whining or starting to yell or I can't understand you. I don't know what you're saying. I need you to try it again. I need you to say that with a calm voice or a kind voice. Try again is what I say many, 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 many times a day. I want crackers. Try again. oh, could I please have crackers? And then, so when you first start doing that, you're going to have to maybe give them the words to say, okay, I need you to try again with a please, or whatever it might be. But just instead of, don't say it like that, it's, hold on, what was that? Sometimes also we say, what? And it's funny because we've had like other kids over, friends, and like, if my kids don't say please, I just say what? And then I wait for them to say it because they know, because that's what I do. But when another kid was there and I was like, what? And then they didn't know what they just kept repeating, I want crackers, I want crackers. And I was like, what? So once your kids know that that's what you're expecting, then they'll be able to follow along, but try again. So one of my girls, there's also a lot of tattling. And so they'll come and say, like, she won't let me be the princess, and I never get to be the princess, and I want to be the princess. And it's always like, we're playing this imaginary game, and she won't let me pretend to be this. And I'm like, the whole thing is imaginary. Why can't you just pretend to be whatever you want? I don't know why it's a problem. So I try to teach them conflict resolution. And again, like, I'm trying to teach them to evaluate their own words. I'm trying to teach them to work out their own problems, because one day I'm not going to be right next to them all the time, and I don't want to have to do that 27,000 times a day. So when they come and say, she did this, and I always say, did you talk to her first? Did you ask her that? Did you ask her how you feel? And so when they're young, again, you're going to need to give them the words. You're going to need to say, go back to your sister and say, it makes me sad that you don't want me to be the princess. Can I please be the princess? Or whatever. Or in 5 minutes, can we trade so I can be the princess if she's the one? And so I try to help them go back and talk to her first. And if it doesn't work, come back to me. Because I don't want to make the fight worse, but I do want you to work it out together without me sometimes. And if you need help, then come get me and we'll do it together. So our kids' words matter in helping them learn that. And then, how do we as moms keep our own words in check and make sure that we're being kind and patient? Some of this is just our perspective shift of, thinking about our kids and how little they are and how, they are going to go away. Maybe that can help you control some of that. But I know our kids are the ones that push all of our buttons, right? They know, and because they're with you all the time, sometimes it gets really hard and really frustrating. I kind of feel bad. I'm going to whisper. I feel bad saying this out loud. This is what I do sometimes, is if I'm really upset with my kids, I try to think about how I would talk to them if they were someone else's kids. So if you're at my house or a play date and your kid is like hitting someone with a fork, I'm not going to be like, stop it, what are you doing? Knock it off, why are you doing it to your sister? I'm not going to do that to someone else's kid. So I'm going to be like, oh, so-and-so, we don't hit with forks in this house, or like whatever it may be. And it's like easy for me to be like really patient and sweet and soft-spoken with someone else's kids. So sometimes I just tell myself, like, what would I say if this wasn't my kid? Like if they were a guest, like how would I treat them right now? And that seems like insane because of course you want to treat your kids right, but it's really hard sometimes as a mom when they're little. So that just perspective of like, well, what would I say if it was someone else? And then, oh, that's how I should say it to them right now. If your kids break something, I know sometimes that can be like really frustrating, and especially if you're like, don't climb on the blah, 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 and then they climb on the blah, 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 and they break the thing. So something that I do that a friend told me to do is as soon as you like hear the crash, is just to say, are you okay? So sometimes it's like, are you okay? Because you're kind of like worked up, but it just brings your focus again back to like, oh, something just like broke and my kid might have gotten hurt. And then it gives me time to be like, I don't really need to be mad about that. Like I always try to tell my kids, because sometimes they feel bad if they break something, like, you are worth so much more to me than that vase or whatever it was. Like, honestly, it's not that important. So just asking immediately if something falls down or you hear a loud sound, even if they were like pushing whatever it was, just like, are you okay? And then it gives your like self time to like calm down and then figure out, what the next step is. The final point about words is about consequences. So I just want you to think about it, making sure that any consequences that you put out there to your kids, make sure that you're willing to do that thing. So if you're at the store and you're like, if you don't stay by me, we're going to have to go home, but you actually can't leave the store before you get milk and eggs and bread and whatever, then that's not a good consequence to put out there. Maybe instead of going home, it's like, when we get home, you don't get to watch a show. But if watching a show is the only way you can take a shower and your neighbors are coming over tonight, like that's also not a good consequence. So maybe they have to sit in the cart if they don't stay, whatever. Like, think before you say it out loud, like, is this something that I actually want to do? I don't want you to be ending up punishing yourself or sabotaging yourself by the consequence you put out there. And because you also have to make sure you follow through. So if you say, if you don't wear a life vest, you can't get in the pool with your friends because mom is not getting wet today. And then you get to the pool with your friends and they're like, I don't want to wear a life vest. And you're like, okay. And you get in the pool. Well, they just learned that they don't have to do what you said because you're just going to do whatever they want you to do. So don't punish yourself, but also make sure that whatever it is something you can actually do and that you're ready and willing to do it. So are you willing to sit on the side and hold them because they didn't want to put on the vest while everybody else plays? Like, whatever it may be, just make sure it's something that you can do and follow through with what you told them. And then as far as words, we also want to balance like the correction. Shh. It's my son, I can tell him. Balance out your corrections with your positive comments too. So you want to call out the good things that your kids are doing. And if you have more than one kid who's playing age, not just baby, it also gives you a chance to kind of convince them to do what you're asking. Let me explain. So if I tell my girls to clean up their toys and someone's not doing it and they're laying on the floor because they can't possibly find anything to clean up, and then I'm like, Thea, why aren't you cleaning up? You need to clean up. You have to get up. I told you to clean up. It doesn't work very well. But if I say, oh, Ireland, I see you cleaning up all the dolls. Thank you so much for helping. You're doing exactly what I asked you to do. Thea, who was like, is like, oh, mom's giving out compliments, and like she wants to go and get one too. So sometimes it's enough to get them to do the thing just by you calling out what someone else is doing. That's what you asked them to do. Or sometimes if I, go by the shoe area by our front door and her lunchbox is there, I'm like, oh, Shayla, I see your lunchbox by the shoes. And then she's like, oh, I forgot it, and can run and get it. And just say whatever the thing is instead of, Shayla, you left your lunchbox at the door again. It's going to get dirty and la, 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 right? Just like say it out loud. I see Ireland's towel in the bathroom on the floor. And then Ireland will like run over and put her towel up. Like sometimes you have to say like, hey, go get your towel, right? But sometimes it's just the way that you say it that can kind of like convince them they want to do it rather than like always being kind of on the negative side. The third and final category on your sheet is personality. So remember the proverb that I said, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he'll not depart from it. So the other cool thing about that proverb is that in the original language, when it says train up a child in the way he should go, it means in the way he is bent, and it's talking about like a tree and how every branch grows like in a different way, a different bend. So your children are made a certain way. They're bent a certain way already, and everyone's made unique. So you saw all the picture after pictures of all my kids, and I can tell you that none of them is exactly like any of the others. My brother would tease, he lives out of state, and I would send pictures, when the girls are born, and he'd like, I don't think you're having more babies, I think you're just sending me a picture of the same baby over and over. So they look very similar, especially like most of the girls, blonde hair, blue eyes, all that. But their personalities and the way they're born, because obviously we're raising them all in the same house with pretty much the same rules and the same values. So like that part is the training that we're doing, but part of them is just who they are and who God made them to be. So some of the things that you're going to want to do with your kids aren't going to be the same as maybe one of your other kids. Some of my kids are more verbal or more tactile. Some are compassionate or more realistic. Some of them more compliant and more defiant. Some are rule followers or rule breakers. They have different like innate qualities about them. I see a lot of myself in some of them, and it's funny because I feel like the ones that are more like me in certain ways, it's easier for me to discipline and train them because I know how they tick. And then the ones that are more like my husband and like we clash more, and I'm like, shouldn't I be able to get along? So it's just interesting, but they're going to respond differently to different types of instruction and discipline. So don't get discouraged if what you did for one child isn't working. You might have to find something else. You might need to talk to someone whose child is more like that or who's gone through it. Your values aren't going to change, but the things that you say or the consequences you give might be different. So in continuing talking about my oldest, he was the most verbal child ever. And since he was our first, we didn't really know that it was like different. But I think he was one, like just one, and he was already talking and he knew all his colors and all the, I don't know, he just like, I would put out puzzles and he'd be like, red, blue, blue. He just talked and he just wanted all the information. Like I would read to him and he would just sit and listen to it. We had someone, when he was around 2, they said, oh, you have a really good vocabulary. And he said, my daddy has one too. He loved to just get read to and sit and play, but he didn't like anything new or that seemed scary. Even like the music in a certain movie, he would know something scary was coming up. He felt that. He was really easy to do things with and take places because he was very compliant. I'd be like, we're doing this. And he'd be like, okay. He would talk about things like how he felt or how if his like arm hurt, he would be like, it feels like a needle is stabbing into the flesh of my muscle. Like he just described everything. And then my second child was born, and he could not be more different from him. When he was about like 9 months old and he started to learn how to pull up to stand, so Sean Jr. would come into a room. Ezra would have just like, when they just get so proud of themselves and they just use the coffee table to stand up. And he was like, I did it. And Sean would come from that door trying to go over there. And he would come and he would go this way to go boop and then run that way. And he would knock him down. And I'm like, what happened to my like sweet, happy, compliant child? Now it's like when you have a child and then your own child is hurting your other child. New world. It's a whole new set of emotions, a whole new thing to figure out because you're like, I got to discipline you, but I'm also really upset that you did that to them because they're also mine, and it's just a different world. So Ezra was so different. He still is very different. He barely spoke any real words until he was 3. He grunted a lot. He used to make like a dog barking sound at the door for our neighbor. He would bite people, mostly his brother, because he just didn't have any words to be like, hey, you took my truck. It was just like, He was really good at figuring things out. So instead of saying, like, it hurts like this, he would just do things. He would, like, dump all the toys out of a bucket and flip it over and push it over there so he could climb up to get something on the shelf that he wasn't supposed to have. But he, like, knew what he was doing spatially. He knows like more about that to this day than I do. He takes things apart and puts them back together all the time. When he was just walking, we got him those squeaky shoes. Have anyone seen those? And they're like, wee, 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 when they walk, because we would play out in our front yards a lot. And he's the one who I would be like, don't go in the street. And he'd be like, ha, and just run. So I could hear, like I could still talk to my neighbor, but I could hear like, wee, 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 wee. And I'm like, he's running. So that was the child that he was. So don't get stuck doing the same thing for this child as that child because they're going to be very different. The really cool thing is, I have to brag a little, is that these two, so different, have shared a room their whole life, and they're really good friends. But sometimes our life still looks like this with them. This is Sean and Ezra. Sean's sitting on him, and they're fighting over a chair. And this is me trying not to get, in harm's way while they're doing that. They were pulling hair and punching and all this stuff, but all in good fun. They were having a really good time. It still happens, but except they weren't mad. They were having a fun time. So I'm just really thankful for them being friends, but I could go probably on for a long time about how different they are, and that's just 2. And then I have 6 girls who all have their own set of things. So just parenting to the same values, but not to the same personality, yeah. So the other thing that I want to encourage you to do with your kids, and this will help you to learn their personality, especially if you have more than one, is spending time with them one-on-one. If you have just one child, then make it a day or a few hours of a day that's about them. Because I know a lot of times we're trying to do all the emails and get the dinner ready and do the thing, and can you play with this? So even if it's I'm going to set the timer for half an hour and just sit by you and do your cars, it might not look the same if you have multiple. If you have multiple kids, and if you can take them out one-on-one, it makes a really big difference. We used to do this really regularly. We've kind of gotten out of it with a lot of reasons, but I'm telling myself right now to get back to it. My daughter Evie, who's 12, I specifically remember she was probably 3 years old, and she was very challenging at that time. If you guys hear the term strong-willed, stubborn is the other not code name for that. She would be I remember sitting outside her bedroom door, and she would just be on the floor screaming and kicking the wall because she didn't want to go to bed. She was challenging as a 3-year-old for me. But I remember one date with her, which wasn't anything magnificent or special, but I took her out. We would trade off on Fridays, you take them, and next week I'll take this person. So I took her out. We went to the little secondhand store. She picked out a book and a pair of shoes, which shoes are pretty much her love language, which probably cost, $5. And then I took her to McDonald's, and thank the Lord the ice cream machine was working, and we got ice cream. And I remember sitting there with her, just reading her the little book, and she had an ice cream, and it was just her and me, and I just was oh, she's so cute and sweet. It just reminded me to see her differently than with everybody fighting me and me telling her what to do and all this. A lot of times it's okay, we have to get in the car, and now we have to go here, and now we have to sit for dinner, and we don't just play with them or just see them for who they are. So I really encourage you, whether you have one or many, to just get time one-on-one with them. And if you can't take them out, then maybe everyone else watches a show or whatever, and you go make Play-Doh with that. I don't know. I mean, it could look different, but try to find a way to just spend a little, even if it's 10 minutes with each person of quality time, because it makes a big difference in how you see them, and then builds up kind of your patience for the time when they're hard. If it's always hard, it's going to be harder. So the last final piece I have to share with you about personality is that you as a mom also are unique and made by God with your own personality, your own emotions to regulate. You've already lived a lot of life. You've had your own childhood and adolescent and adult life, and you've had experiences that have formed you into who you are now. I want to remind you that the things that you've been through, the person that you are, and the children that you have is all on purpose. Like Jessica mentioned in her devotional, those children are given to you on purpose. I struggle with feeling like I'm enough as a mom. I think that's pretty common. As your kids get older, that doesn't really go away. Sorry. But I also have a hard time when I see my kids going through things that I've gone through, and I just wish that I could scoop them out of it. It might be losing a loved one or going through other kinds of struggles or trying to make new friends or whatever the case may be. We want our children to be happy all the time, and that's not reality. But I want to encourage you that the things that you've gone through, the hard things that I've gone through, is preparing me and preparing you to then be able to help your kids through the same kind of hard things. There's a verse in the Bible that says, God comforts us in all our troubles so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God. So none of it's by accident. You're meant to be their mom, and God will give you what you need to do that every day. So I want you guys to be consistent, be aware of your words, and to build relationships with your little ones and all their unique personalities. These days are going to pass by sooner than you think, and you're going to be wondering if you might see your child today. This is the longest I've seen him in one day in a long time. You might not know if they're going to be home for dinner, but right now it doesn't feel like it. But just keep that in mind. And if you're struggling and you want prayer, or if you're not sure who this God is that we keep telling you has made you and made your children, please talk to your table leader or talk to me. I'm going to be here afterwards, and I'm going to have Jessica and Jen pass along my email address if anybody wants that. And so I just want to close in praying for you. So if you guys would close your eyes, and then you'll have a little time, I think a few minutes to talk at your tables. God, you are the God of peace, and we pray that you would give us peace in our parenting, that you would equip every woman here with all they need to do your will, that they wouldn't worry if they're enough, but that they would lean on you for strength every day and ask for help where they need it. I pray that they would raise up their children in the way they should go, so that when they're old, they wouldn't depart from it. And we just dedicate them and their kids to you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you so much, Becky. That was great. Okay, we only have a few more minutes, so I'm going to do the closing announcements and then give you guys, hopefully, 2 minutes to talk. Next week, we're doing a meetup at the Community Center Park. It's the orange park, painted all the equipment's orange in town. So if you want to meet up, Brianna is going to be heading that up, but at 9:30, Mom Life time, about 9:30 to 11:30. If you want to, there's a meetup. Okay, and then the next meeting we have together is October 3rd, and we're bringing in an attorney to talk about guardianship, which is, we'll be learning about how to get your paperwork in order to protect your children should anything happen to you. So it's kind of, I don't like thinking about death, but it's kind of like what children if you weren't able to be here, right? So it's kind of an important topic and something we've had on our list to bring somebody in to teach us about for a while. So anyway, that's going to be on October 3rd. And then Riverview has a really fun harvest festival that they do in October. So I wanted to give you guys the dates for that, October 19th. And it's dress up, Halloween costumes, all the games, blow-ups. Super fun festival that they do every year, so you're invited to that as well. Okay, go ahead and I don't think there's any table talking points, but if you guys could share something that you are going to take home from today, that'd be great. And then we got to watch the clock for 11:30. Thank you.